welcome back to the Mitten State Wells. Today, I will be taking an adventure up to Durand, Michigan to chase the Great Lakes Central the opposite turn. We thought we would start it here at Durand, but for a simple phone text, that would change everything. We would have to drop south to Howell, Michigan, just to wait for them to go back north. In the meanwhile, we decided to wait for a little bit since we had a clear signal for Westbound on a Flint sub. It would end up being X491, which would end up going from Toronto, Ontario to all the way to Gary, Indiana. Had an M-2 leading, a T-bow trailing, second, and then another M-2. After 491 went by the Durand Union Station, we decided just to wait for a little bit before we would make our way south towards Howell, Michigan. And we decided to check out the Plymouth sub, Webberville, Michigan. In the meanwhile, we waited for 20 minutes till we get a clear signal for an eastbound. It's too early for L303, but it's not too early for L305. L305 is basically a Lansing local, comes out of Lansing to go east towards like Howell or whatever it needs to work at. Today, they decided to work Howell and go all the way east towards South Leon, with an SD40-3 pair leading the way. After we would get L305 here at Webberville by the Searchlights, we decided to head over to the grain elevator just to find the Pan Am Heritage Unit. The Pan Am Heritage Unit was parked by the grain elevator, and it was being loaded as a GA04. A GA04 came from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, all the way up towards Webberville. In the meanwhile, though, we decided to make our way back toward Howell, and we wouldn't miss the Great Lakes Central since we heard the P5 in the distance of the other side of town. In the meanwhile, though, while we were waiting and chilling, we did hear them talking on the radio. That was before that we heard them across town. Meanwhile, though, we were on a road for another 10 minutes till we'd see this neat curve south of Cohoctah. After we would catch the power here at this neat curve south of Cohoctah, we decided to basically taste this guy a little bit before we would make our way toward another spot of ours. It's a field shot, so we would have to go pretty far and try to be our best to get the best shots as we can. Anyway, we decided to pace him to Cohoctah. And in the meanwhile, we would get some horn action by the Nathan P5 that the GLC 386 has.
Really slow.
After doing a little bit of pacing and going into downtown Cohoctah, we decided to get a little bit of a field shot here at Byron. Byron, Michigan would be the last spot of the GLC chase before we even make our way back home. March 15th, 2025 at 2:40 in the afternoon. 3 weeks later, we're back on the road. This time, making a 2-hour drive north for the Flint subdivision. Not Durand this time. This time we're going to Lapeer, Michigan. Just for a very special move that's coming from Homewood, Illinois to Montreal, Quebec. And you would see, we're taking Norfolk with us, which is my dog. We are in Flint now. We should be seeing a Westbound and a Moral on the Flint subdivision. At this point, we were 20 minutes till we were getting into Lapeer, Michigan. Lapeer? I'd never been to Lapeer before. Well, this is going to be our first time in Lapeer. In the meanwhile, though, on our way to Lapeer, the drive was kind of nice. Although it was kind of windy. 55 mile per hour winds. So, we had a wind advisory for Lapeer. In the meanwhile, though, I was given word from my buddies in Mainline City they had a westbound clear them. In the meanwhile, though, I was 20 minutes away from Lapeer. In the meanwhile, though, I did make it within 5 to 10 minutes before M301 would be rounding the corner to head westbound towards Vancouver, British Columbia. since I've never really been in Lapeer, Michigan, I decided to give myself a tour. It's basically an Amtrak station, but they call it the Lapeer Depot. In the meanwhile, though, we did add another westbound since it was lined right after M301 cleared. They basically had them approach at the first time and then a clear. I feel like I can never get away from this railroad, but I'm just gonna say it again. It's CSX. What's CSX doing all the way up here and on the Flint sub? Well, they basically want a local. L306 is basically from Flint to Port Huron and back. They basically call it the Florent Flyer. It will be another couple hours till our train that we are waiting for would show up in Lapeer. So we decided to go into the Lapeer Depot and just chill and talk till P276 arrives. Poopy butts!
Yeah, you know what? But no, the clickety clack, you can hear it.
Yeah, you could hear it. First time in Lapeer. Classic.
It's already been great.
It's already been good.
Easton just said it. P276, clear Charlotte, Michigan.
It's going to be an hour till P276 arrives. It just went through Durand at the time, and the storm clouds, oof, they were not good. It was pouring down rain. 20 minutes after the storm has passed, we hear the horn for P276 around in the corner, and we would see the headlight of P276. P276 is a Fieldwell Siemen set move for Montreal, Quebec. These moves has ran a couple times within a year, like maybe 2 to 3 within 2 to 3 months. But today, on the 15th, we were given word that GTW 8952, the Grand Trunk Heritage Locomotive, would be leading on the P276 for Montreal, Quebec. The storm passed. We won't have to worry about rain downpouring while we were waiting and getting P276. Yup. Not gonna lie, it was a good trip up here to Lapeer, Michigan. And now we gotta make an hour and 59 minutes back home, which is 2 hours. Yeah, this was worth it. After getting P276, like I said earlier, we would have to make our way back home within 2 hours. By the time we got home, it was getting dark. So, was it worth it after all? Yes, it was, because I would have to say that would be my 10 top catch of 2025. I'd never seen a Heritage unit led on the Wheel Siemen set move before, so this was definitely worth a trip going up to Lapeer. In the meanwhile though, it would be another 2 weeks for us to go back to the South Bend and the Flint sub once again. Oh wait, a good hour 18 minutes have gone by. We get off at an exit in Mainline, and we're by Arby's, by Seiko. We're about to get some Shamrock Shakes and a vanilla. Okay, update. I guess Arby's was closed, so we have to go to McDonald's, which ain't too bad. So, yeah. Good old McDonald's. Hope the doors are open. We're about to get 2 Shamrock Shakes and a vanilla shake. Update. The doors were open, so McDonald's are open at this time of the night. I spy Shamrock Shakes. Wait there on the menu. At 7 a.m. sharp, we left for Battle Creek, Michigan on March 28th. I decided to take a couple friends of mine, Alex and Carson, out to Battle Creek, Michigan on the South Bend subdivision to catch, well, what would be another top 10 out of 9 catches of the year. It would be another great lash up that would be waiting and catching. But this time though, we would not wait for very long, maybe 2 hours at least. But by the time we got to Battle Creek, it was around 9 a.m. By the time we were waiting for the L521 to depart, we would have to wait till 11 a.m. This time though, 521 was going to be very short. Probably like 6 to 7 cars at least. We made it to Battle Creek around 9 a.m. So that means we would have to wait for 2 hours before L521 departs from Battle Creek to Kingsbury, Indiana. This would be on the South Bend subdivision. We would basically have 2 minutes to spare before we would have to get to the South Bend for Amtrak 365 from Port Huron, Michigan to Chicago, Illinois. The Blue Water Amtrak train. Right after 365 would go by, we would check the Amtrak tracker, and basically 350 from Chicago, Illinois to Pontiac, Michigan, which is the Wolverine Amtrak train, that would depart around 11 a.m. before L521. At 11:06 a.m., L521 would finally get to depart from Battle Creek to Kingsbury, Indiana. The locomotives that are on it today would end up being the original paint EJ&E 659, which would end up being an EMD SD38-2 diesel electric locomotive that is still serves the original paint of EJ&E paint. The trailing locomotive would end up being a Grand Trunk locomotive 5846, would still serve as the original paint of the Grand Trunk Western. They'll both be leading on L521. So the mic on the camera got a little bit wet in it, so I apologize for the audio. So we made it to the nearest crossing, like west of Battle Creek, and you can probably see the train around in the corner. We barely made it for L521 west of Battle Creek. As the time progressed, we decided to go all the way towards Edwardsburg, Michigan, which is by the Indiana border. We had no choice since we were on our way to Vicksburg, Michigan on the South Bend. We were basically on our way there, but the worst part is though, we were basically paralleling them, which means it would be a little hard to get ahead of them. Since I thought we were going to go nearby crossing and catch them for a couple spots and getting them at a crossing just west of we were. Well, we missed them within a minute, and we saw the tail end within a mile away. In the meanwhile though, we were in Schoolcraft, and we were basically 10 miles behind L521. But a simple phone text would change it all. A buddy of mine texted me and told me that L521 got into the siding at milepost 135 and 138. Edwardsburg is basically milepost 118. And basically, we were 5 miles out to Edwardsburg, and we were basically 15 miles ahead of L521. And basically, it would have to wait on a couple trains, which means we would have 2 trains go west and east on the South Bend at Edwardsburg. Our first train that we would get in Edwardsburg would end up being Q116. Q116 comes from Homewood, Illinois to Flat Rock, Michigan, with an SD75i Duo taking the lead. After Q116 passed, I decided to fly the drone up in the air just to see where I want to get the shot of L521 before ending the chase here at Edwards. In the meanwhile though, we would get a hot shot westbound intermodal that would come from all the way Montreal, Quebec, all the way to Homewood, Illinois. After 20 minutes has passed, after C-149 passes Edwardsburg, I get the drone up in the air. I figured I wouldn't see a headlight already. Well, sure do. I certainly do see a headlight. And that gets me to my spot of where I want to get 521 past the Earl with the drone. And that means I would start my video on the drone, the cameras that I have on the tripod, and I would basically get the settings set up on my camera, and we would basically start rolling and getting pictures and videos at Edwardsburg while 521 would pass Edwardsburg, Michigan by the Merle. I would finally be able to shoot a train by the Merle here for the first time and the final time and end the chase here. After shooting Edwardsburg, I decided it would be best for all of us to go back home, since I would have a 2.5 hours drive back. The boys have like an hour and a half, but still. I've been driving all day, chasing all day. The chase was not what I had in mind. We only were able to get like 3 spots in mind, but what we had planned was 7. After we saw it at the crossing west of Battle Creek when it was going fast, I said to myself it was probably never going to be an easy chase. Well, it was never easy. We missed it at Vicksburg and all the other places. Luckily we got ahead of it by 15 miles and we ended it at Edwardsburg, Michigan. In the meanwhile though, I would have to end this video in Edwardsburg as well. Thank you so much for watching this 39-minute video, and I'll see you next time in the Mitten State or the Buckeye State Wales.